Wonderful. Well, welcome, you guys. We are at about 1 minute after, so we'll go ahead and get started for the sake of time. Today's session, I'm really excited about. We will dive in, have a great conversation with Heather. I'll introduce her in a moment. Rhonda Blackburn is not with us today because she has gone back to teaching in the classroom, and she'll try to join us during her lunch break a little later on. But Rhonda is our Chief Information Officer and my cohort for the professional development team. So excited to continue to do that with her. I'm Dr. Kelly Irwin. As I just said, am the co-partner on the professional development side of the house with Rhonda. So we love putting together these bite-sized learning experiences. I'm also the president-elect for this coming year, which is really exciting. And we'll talk more about why that's so exciting in a minute. You guys, though, are joining us today for the Bite-Sized Learning webinar. These are free webinars that we offer every month at the lunchtime. And if you haven't gone in to look at the TxDLA website for our learning section, when you go to the website, txdla.org, and you go to Learn, I'm not live on this, so I can't show it expand, but under Learn, you will see all the information for how to sign up for our bite-sized learning webinars. We are trying to build out our calendar. So we have not November, goodness, September's on the website too. So go ahead and make sure you sign up for our webinars and join us for our free learning sessions. Today, we're talking about looking up and talking, curiosity and conversation in the classroom. In September, our next month's webinar is about AI engagement, how to turn students into fans. So again, visit our website, click on Learn, and go look at the TxDLA Bite-Sized Learning webinars and get registered for those. We have a busy few months ahead of us. October is right around the corner, and that's when our leadership workshop is. So it's October 15th through 17th in South Padre Island. So that's another exciting and fantastic way to connect with TxDLA to not only build the community, but learn some additional leadership skills. So definitely check that out. That information is also on the website. Now, I said I was really excited to be president-elect for all sorts of reasons, but one of the reasons is our in-person and virtual conference. In person will be March 23rd through 26th in Galveston, and then we'll do virtual April 14th through 15th. Again, all of this information is on the TxDLA website, but definitely go in and bookmark and save those dates and look into joining us for a great learning experience. Couple of call outs for our Zoom meeting basics. We are recording this session and it will be posted after the fact. Chat is live and active. We already had you guys kind of engaging in chat. We ask that as we go through this session, which is really going to be a conversation between me and Heather, ask us questions, drop things in the chat, and I'll watch chat as we're going through this and make sure that we add into the conversation the thoughts and questions that you guys have. Lastly, everybody is on mute just so that we don't have any background noise coming in as we have the conversation. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Heather Brantley with Curipod to engage in the conversation, look up and talk curiosity and conversation in the classroom. So Heather, with that, I will pass it to you and let you do your introduction.
Hi, I'm Heather Brantley. I do now work for Curipod. I actually was one of the first Curipod users. So as a classroom teacher, I was looking when AI first come to the scene, like what are ways that I can incorporate this into my classroom? I actually had started under Heather Tech EDU and I had a hashtag and it was guide them, not block them. Like how can we safely bring AI into the classroom for students to understand what it is and how it's used, but do it in such a safe way that they understand like how to make sure they're protected. And Curipod was just like, it was a solution. I mean, it was incredible. So I used it in my classroom I was a math teacher at that time. Then I moved into technology. And as I continued to help more and more teachers, I got moved into a CTE digital communications class, but I also got to help support teachers on my campus and then really in my district. So and a lot of times there was a lot of um, problems that were coming to me, like, how do I fix this or what can I do? And I kept finding Curipod the solution to that. So when the job opportunity came up in January over Christmas break, actually, I was able to join the team as events and community. So my job is to help support teachers around the world, really. So I love what I do. I love getting to share with others about Curipod. I'm super excited that you're all here today. I know it's back to school time. I've been seeing social media blowing up with these first day pictures. And what's so hard is, like, I think it aged me today. Like, they're a junior, they're a senior, it's the first day of college. Or I was like, wow, these babies were just in my fifth grade classroom. What has happened? So exciting time of year for us to do this.
Well, great. Thank you. And we are really excited to have you here. So, without further ado, let's dive into our conversation. So, just from your introduction, you talked about experiences that you had in the classroom and sort of what your passion was and what brought you to Curipod. So, I want you to kind of think through and talk through maybe an example, right, of how you turned a traditional lesson into something that's more of like curiosity driven, student centered, and kind of talk us through how that has worked and how that does work.
Well, there's so many examples, but I'll kind of try to narrow down. So overall, what I was struggling with was, how do I give every student in my classroom a voice, an equal voice? So as a teacher, when I ask a question, I normally only have one or two, and it's usually the same, that they have their hand up. They're like, I have the answer to that. And I really felt it was important for every student voice to be heard. So in the beginning, like back in the day with Curipod, when the engagement came in, it started out really more of that. It was, how did the voices get heard? And then as AI has progressed, so has the abilities and the things that we can help teachers with the product. So when you answer a question in Curipod, everybody gets to answer the question. And then we have a voting tool built in. So after the question has been answered, um, normally, like I said, one or two, but now every voice, but no one knows who the answer belongs to. So
Mhm.
maybe that reluctant student that didn't want to speak up because they didn't want to be embarrassed, but yet they had a way of saying it that I, as a teacher, could have never said. There's sometimes, like, the peer conversation can bring our class to the next level. So Curipod has been able to do that. So what happens is they vote two at a time. So students can decide which of the two is the best answer that we're looking for. And then at the end, you'll get to see the top three peer chosen. And then going back to, you really only have time for a couple of answers. So you're going to discuss the ones that the class felt was the most important. And then you can also kind of go through and look at others, but every voice got to be heard. And for me, the other thing is sometimes when a student says it a different way, it kind of gives it a click. So even if it wasn't voted to the top, it's opening up their perspective and helping everyone not only feel that they were included, but their voice actually counted in the conversation. Um,
Wow. Yeah.
and now we even have, so those are building those interactive things in there, but now we even have it to where you can curify. So say that you have a curriculum that's boring, and this is what you're asked to do. And it's not that, it's no fault of our own, but we want to make it interactive. We don't want it to where we're talking at students. We want it to where students are looking up and having conversations with each other. So a lot of times what you're going to see as you're looking at the lesson built is, you're going to see where we're giving opportunities for students to have conversations in the classroom. So that is where we're look up and talk. Let's have some conversations. Let's spark curiosity, and let's problem solve through. Because a lot of times as a teacher, you can prompt them and step back and watch the conversations happen and the learning happen around you.
So, it's interesting to hear you say that. I think back to when I was in the classroom and the ways we tried to engage students in person, sitting in the brick and mortar environment. And there were those students that just, no matter what tactic you tried, they were not going to share their thoughts. They were fearful of it. And one of the things that I think I've appreciated the most about the digital learning environment, and I don't mean just online learning, I truly mean where we've brought digital components into the classroom, is these students that all of a sudden, to your point, are willing to answer questions, or they're willing to share their thoughts or their ideas because they're in this space where they feel maybe less intimidated is the right word. So that's great. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And it's all about getting them engaged in the process. You said something when you were talking just a second ago that I kind of want to dig a little deeper into. And you mentioned AI and what you were saying, but I want to talk a little bit more about that. So, we're all abuzz with AI in education, and some people are hands off, don't want that to be a part of the experience. Others are, I dove in head first, didn't even put my feet first. I like head first going for it. So when you think about AI and lesson design in general, how do you go about ensuring that what is generated from AI is not only academically rigorous, but it's truly tailored to diverse learning needs?
Well, and I love the way you talk about the diverse learning needs in that question too. So we are still the teachers. We are still responsible for our content. And I think that's so important for everyone to understand. It's not perfect. Now, is it getting better? Absolutely. Chat GPT 5 kind of mind blowing? Yes. But it's still responsibility of the teacher to understand what is it that you're trying to teach? What is your objective? So if you have a good set objective, AI is going to give you off of your objective, which we kind of use AI to help prompt to make sure you have a solid objective. It's going to give you what you want at the end for the students to know. And Curipod, even we have now backward design built in because we want to ensure that the clear goal is met at the end. So if you're not getting the exit ticket that you want your students to actually know in the lesson, then how do you know the lesson's great? So we start with the end in mind. Like, what exactly are my students walking away with a strong understanding? So I encourage, if you haven't created a lesson, when you create a lesson, pay attention to the layout of how it's designed. It's in it over to the side, we have an AI bot and it talks about backwards design and it's going to talk about how we do the diversity for students. And you can, with the help of AI, you can actually build a sixth grade lesson with a sixth grade TEK, but say you're working with students on a third grade reading level. You can actually ask the Curipod AI, make this on a third grade reading level. And it just instantly, it does that for you. It helps support. But what I love is we have AI feedback built in. So when a student in the classroom is given AI feedback, it's given it to them on their learning level. So I was a teacher. I had life skill students and GT students all in one space. And it was really hard. Like, how do I meet the learning of all of those kids? So what I realized real quick by using the AI feedback in the classroom is like, hold on, my SPED student just got a response on how not only they did great, an area glow, they also got their grow on their level on where they're at. And then you have your GT kid who's, I mean, a lot of times what happens is we're so focused on the lower levels. I was guilty of this as a teacher. No matter how great of a teacher you are, sometimes you're not getting that gifted kid that extra that they need into the detail that they get it. So I can work in the same classroom with all levels, and their glow is going to give them where they're great, but their grow is going to give them where they need to improve on their level. And I think that there's something special about that. John Hattie's research on there was effective on real-time feedback and how it makes a difference in a student's life.
So I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I love that you called out some different research along the way, which sort of drives me into my my next question, actually. So when you are looking at all of these different strategies, right? Think, pair, share, quick writes, whatever kind of strategies you're using in the digital lesson kind of flow, how do you make sure that those pieces of the puzzle don't slow down the momentum of the learning or the practice? And I don't mean just in K-5 or higher ed, but I also mean like when you're looking at any type of learning, any age learner, how do you bring those research-based practices in?
We have the best curriculum team, design team in the background. So Curipod is not just saying, hey, AI, create a lesson. So what you're getting is we do have a curriculum team that works on the background, and they're really special. These were actually educators at one time. They understand where the teacher's coming from, and they spend a lot of time talking to teachers. So I, as a classroom teacher, I knew the best practices. I went to school, I learned all those things. But you get in a classroom with the kids and life happens. And in my head today, we were going to do four corners, think, pair, shares, and high five conversations. But life happened, and then at the end of the lesson, I'm like, oh, I didn't get to that. So Curipod, as it designs the lesson, it's still teacher led, and it kind of flows through to help prompt. Like right now's a great time to have that four corner conversation. Right now's a good time to do a think, pair, share. So you're going to find that those best practices are built into the lessons. And you, as a teacher, if when you generate, you're able to edit and make those lessons customizable to the needs of your classroom. You know what works best for your kids. So a lot of times, and even with adults, it's easy to get up there and be talking at them. It's easy, I was a teacher at one time who, I felt like the best teaching practice sometimes was standing up and I teach at you and then you go explore independently. And I think that we miss that we part where we're having conversations, we're learning together, we're sharing, and what I love about whenever you pick your four corner or you decide on a debate, you have to be able to justify, why was that your answer? Why did you think? So it's not like I just choose this answer. This is why I believe in this answer. This is why I support it, leading back to more great conversations happening in the classroom.
Yeah, I love that. So, one of the things that, and I just posted this comment in the chat, like I'm sensing a theme here, and what I hear is you talk about glow, you talk about grow, and you talk about we, right? It doesn't matter whether you're K-12, higher ed, government, corporate, it doesn't matter. Like those three things are so crucial to learning in general. And so I love that kind of throughout this whole conversation so far, those are different things that you've brought up, right? And so we've been trained to do what we do. Again, whether you're a teacher in a K-12 classroom, you're a professor of some sort in higher ed, or you're truly a professional trainer. Like it doesn't matter. We've all learned how to teach people. We've all gone through the process to learn how people learn. And I think the most interesting part of this whole thing with AI is AI has been trained using many of the same resources and research and such that we've been trained with. I think that the piece of the puzzle that I find interesting is when we are using AI to create these learning experiences, that we don't get rid of the human piece of it, right? Like you said, we are still the person providing the instruction or the guidance along the way. AI is just helping us in that process. So I want to go back to something that you were kind of talking to earlier, and you kind of brought up feedback. And I want to talk about that just a minute because in the digital learning space, one of the thing, well, just in learning in general, maybe not even digital learning space, but one of the things that I have noticed with learners is when they get that instant feedback or that real-time feedback, that's sort of what drives their curiosity, right? They want to learn more. It helps build sort of foundations for conversations that we can have, right? So it totally hits that glow, that grow, and it builds that we. So when you're thinking about the types of feedback that have the most impact on learning outcomes, how do you incorporate that? How do you facilitate that in a digital environment or a hybrid environment for that matter?
Well, what's great is whether you are online or you're in person, anyone can join a Curipod lesson. And students are able to join without us collecting student data. There's not a student account. They get a code, they come into this safe environment to learn. And when they're given AI feedback, so every student answers the question, they're given the AI feedback on it, they give an opportunity in the learning moment to reflect upon what could I have done differently. And what I really have as a teacher, like been one of my big things, like whenever I shared, like you want to use Curipod because one, you're going to get the AI feedback instantly. But while the student is still in that learning thought process,
Uh-huh.
let them reflect. And we have like a little poll that kind of also helps the teacher, because I want to tell you, like, if I'm giving them like 4 ways of how could you have made this better, and the majority of the class just said, oh, I needed to use evidence from the text, that tells me as a teacher that maybe I need to stop and reteach evidence from the text.
Right.
It kind of helps the teacher guide that lesson. But think about, in that moment, you have an opportunity to make those corrections. So you're given the same
Mhm.
exact question that you had originally with the AI feedback that you just reflected upon, and it talked about, hey, this is ways that you could have made this better. And the student right then, not only do they have a chance to put that into practice, but they can feel the joy and glow of growing off of that. And with the Hattie's research, it goes into reflection, revision, and growth while the learning is fresh, while it's there and it sticks. And, I know that there's times that I've been handed a paper and I made a 70. And as a student, I was like, oh, I forgot to do this. Like, if I could have had just a moment to reflect upon my learning, to double check it, and then reapply it to get a better grade. And we're seeing research coming in from all these different schools that saying our scores improved dramatically because we used Curipod. They were able to learn from their mistakes immediately, apply it, so they knew the next time like what it should look like. So there's growth upon growth with each lesson that they do.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think the thing that I appreciate about what you're sharing is like there are literally at this point probably a gazillion different platforms and tools out there, and I feel like every day that I go on LinkedIn or I'm looking at one of the education digital magazines that I review or articles or anything, I feel like every day there is something new. There's some new tool that does something similar or something better. And, and it gets to a point where as an instructor, I get a little overwhelmed feeling, quite frankly, because I don't really know what the right tool is. Should I try this one? Should I try that one? What direction do I go? And so while I feel like all of these different AI tools are out there to kind of help us enhance what we already do in the classroom, I feel like all of a sudden there's this extra workload, if you will, in trying to figure out which tool to use, how much prep time I might need to one, learn how to use the tool, but then once I learn how to do it, how to actually do it. And so I keep hearing, oh, it's going to save you time, but I feel like there are trade-offs, right? In this process. Can you talk to us a little bit just about that in general?
Well, there are a lot of tools with a lot of purposes. And that's one of the things with Curipod is like we are a tool for classroom instruction. We're not an asynchronous tool because so many of our tools now are trying to get students independently working on their own. And the saddest day, one of the saddest days in my classroom is when I thought that every student was engaged, realizing they were sitting side by side clicking their learning. And it broke my heart because I was like, oh, that was a teacher fail 100%. Because out of my 20 students, 10%, maybe 10%, that was their learning style. So I think it's going to have to be coming to teachers need to, and there are so many teacher help tools, is coming to like, what are you needing AI for? Like, what's your goal? So are you needing AI to create, emails? Are you needing it to help you refine your paperwork? Like, what exactly is your goal? With Curipod, the goal is to have interactive lessons with best teacher practices built into it, and giving reports at the end to help you move on to your next lesson. But I do think that everybody is trying to like fill every little hole with different tools. And do we need all those tools? Like, what exactly are you needing? Because I have some teachers who would come to me and they're like, I'm needing to make a syllabus. Okay, well, here's what you need for a syllabus. Um, but if you're needing just to fill the needs of using AI to help you build a quick lesson using best teaching practices, that's where Curipod comes in. So we're here to support that. But it is definitely overwhelming. Every time, like you said, you log in, like it's, hey, here's something else that you could use AI for. Okay, is that something you're needing in your life? Like, how do you know what you do and do not need? So I think it's setting goals as a teacher and taking bite-sized pieces. Like, build a lesson in Curipod, try it out. If it's not for you, oh, we're not for you. But if it is for you, we'd love to hear more about that. So it's just, don't get so overwhelmed. Just take one little bite-sized piece at a time. And it's okay to say that that's not for me.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, because I talk to people or I work with people and they're like, "Oh my gosh, here's ABC tool," and hopefully there isn't a tool called ABC. I'm truly trying to make a point here. Um, but oh my gosh, there's this tool and it's so great and I used it for this and you have got to go use this. And maybe I go use it and I'm like, "Well, I don't feel that same connection. I don't feel that same inspiration." And it becomes that's just like another piece of the puzzle that kind of becomes overwhelming for instructors is, oh my gosh, what am I missing? Why is it so great? I don't see the greatness of this. So I love that you called out that, yeah, it's okay that there are a gazillion tools out there. You will find the things that work for you and the things that don't. And one of the things that popped into mind as you were talking through this last little bit was that it's no different than what we do in the classroom, right? When we set out to design a learning experience for a student, we have objectives, we have outcomes, we have expectations, we have standards that we have to meet. We have in the corporate side, it's, well, maybe they have to learn a new tool or they have to learn how to, I don't know, I don't have a good example on the top of my brain right now, but have to learn how to do something in their profession, right? And so we never start with just, hey, I need a thing. We always start with our outcomes, right? And we backwards design to make sure that we are hitting all the pieces along the way so that whatever that outcome is, we're setting our learners up for success on that, right? And so the next piece of the puzzle that I worry about with AI generated tool or AI tools that generate learning experiences, how do we make sure that we understand how to ask for the right thing?
Well, and that's it. A lot of times we feel like we have to be expert prompters to get the
Mhm.
right response out. And one of the things that Curipod has done is we went to school to be a teacher. We didn't go to school to be an AI prompter, and we're learning it the best we can. So it will ask you the questions to help you make sure that you are giving a very precise objective. Because if I was just doing, for example, the water cycle, well, that's super broad. Like,
Mhm.
am I learning the entire water cycle in 45 minutes in a class? Um, Maybe I'm just going to introduce it that way. So that would be an introductory part. And also, I know that the water cycle in East Texas looks a lot different than the water cycle even in West Texas. So it's kind of like, it kind of prompts you to exactly what are you trying to teach? And by asking the questions, and it's not asking you to do a full prompt. I do not have to say, create a lesson on water cycle in East Texas. I can type water cycle and it's going to say, hey, what grade? What standards are you teaching? So it's going to ask all the things to make a solid objective. Going back to, we have these wonderful humans on the backside in our curriculum team that are making sure that teachers set strong objectives. So we're not asking you to be an AI expert. And I think that's where also a lot of people, they're kind of scared to touch some of our tools now in the ed tech world because they're like, oh, well, I'm not good at AI. I don't know anything about it. That's new to me. So they just kind of hands off. And I really am going to challenge those who feel that way just to try to create a lesson using our AI powered generator to see that it's very simple. It's not You don't have to be a brain surgeon. You didn't go to school to be a brain surgeon if you're that, well, maybe you could have, but
Maybe.
most likely though, most of us went to school to be an educator, or maybe we're a history major and now we teach history, or a math major who teaches math, which even goes to mind. A lot of times our classroom teachers and even like some of our professors, they're an expert in what they teach, but maybe they didn't go to school to learn best teaching practices. Maybe that was new to them. So Curipod can help assist with those best teaching practices that maybe you didn't have an opportunity to take classes on in college or have the training on, but we can help with that. And the more you do the lessons, the more it becomes natural to you.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I am a second career educator. I started out in the financial industry in the management side of things and compliance, and then went back to school to become a teacher. But not everybody gets those true how to teach experiences. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but especially when I look at what I've been doing in the corporate training world. Now there are certifications that you can go and get, and they teach you about adult learners and and those kinds of things. But what really strikes me is when I went back to school, the reason I wanted to become a corporate trainer, but I realized I didn't know how to learn. I mean, how others learned. And what I wanted to learn was how children learn, because I felt like the process that children go through when they are learning how to learn and they are learning and they are building this pathway, by the time they become adults, there are certain things that have been set in place that impact how they go about learning as adults. And so, I went through this crazy path and ended up in elementary education and then in corporate training, and it's been really interesting to me to kind of look at the different ways that we learn across this age spectrum, across these different environments. And the thing that sticks out to me is, how do we measure the impact of that learning, right? At all of these different stages, like, what are the metrics? What are the indicators that any instructor can use um, to kind of to gauge that engagement and to see if learning actually happened? Like, did we hit that outcome that we were expecting? How do you kind of go about that?
Well, Curipod has done a great job with this one as well. So, when I, as a teacher, am in the classroom, I understand that not every student has the same learning style. And a great way of example of that is not every student is a writer. Maybe they can illustrate and they can explain their thought process more with a drawing than they could a writing. So in the Curipod lesson, you're going to find that we hit differentiation for all learning styles. So there will be opportunities for a quick poll. Maybe just that little quick glimpse will let us know where they're at. Maybe they can illustrate it. There's a drawing in there. Maybe they are a great writer and they can write it out in an open question. So we try to make sure that everything is in there. And what I would love to do is I would love to show you real quick a report to show you, like, after a lesson is completed, how we can actually take what AI has generated out and give us an overview. Hold on, let me pull up a report real quick. Uh, Share screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen real quick with you. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep, we're good to go.
Okay, so you'll see on the screen here, after a lesson is completed, we're going to have, this is the learning objective, but we're going to have the most common understandings, like what came up often and the kids were really strong in knowledge of. Okay, so that lets you know like where the kids are at. But we also have the most common misconception across the board. This is where the kids were missing it. And this is an area as a teacher I can improve on, is through the misconception. I also have an action item of, this is my next steps. This is what I need to do next with my class to continue on. And then it's also going to pull up who needs help. These are my top 5. Those are going to be my small groups. You also have in here where you can see who participated, and what areas did they do the poll. And like, for example, maybe Kelly was late for class today. So I knew that Kelly was not going to participate here. So I can also see this by student as well. Um, And talking about that glow and the grow and action item, with the school plan, that is the upgraded plan, but it is available for us to do individual kids reports. So if you're working with those, like your special ed kids, your 504 kids, even your GT kids, okay, you can actually see like where this kid is on their glow, their grow, and the action item for them. So if you're having to set goals, this will help you do that. Also, if I want to pull a student over and have conversations about what was happening in learning today, when I pull it up, I'm only showing that student. They're not seeing anyone else's
Mhm.
information. So going back to, we really have that fake name in there. We have it built in where every kid feels that they're in a safe learning environment and their voice can be heard without an embarrassment toward them. What's also great is throughout the learning process, if you have a student who words of affirmation is his thing or her thing, they're going to say, that one's mine. And then you can turn around and praise them. They're going to ask for it. It just is going to naturally happen in the setting. Um, they're going to be the ones that are shouting. And what's even great is over time, you will see the comfort level. So the student who would have at the beginning never would have spoken out and claimed it, you're going to see them start claiming their little yays in their life. And it's so beautiful to watch because you gave them that safe learning environment, which is so incredible, that we can have platforms like this because there was a time 5, 10 years ago, that we didn't have this. So learning looks so different. So, and then I can also go back and even look through the activities and have conversations about particular slides and reflect upon learning for myself as a teacher, helping them move forward.
Yeah, you just said something. Learning looks so different. My goodness, that is no joke. Learning looks so different. This morning I was reading an article um, through the Digital Education Awards that they had posted. I think maybe it posted this morning and I happened to read it today also. But they were talking about how different education is from if we look at, pre-2020 to 2020 to 2022, and then how different 2023 to 2025. That's really hard to say all those numbers. 2025 and what it's going to be moving forward. And it was so interesting to kind of just force myself to take a step back. I know that. I lived it. I was involved, as all of us were. But just reading the article sort of triggered something in my brain to stop and think about how much it truly has changed. Not just learning, but how we learn, how we teach, how we deliver, and all of those kind of pieces of the puzzle. And so we're kind of running close on time. So this will be my last question for you. But thinking about all of that, how do we help schools, universities, any kind of corporate or government digital learning environment? How do we help all of these different entities kind of think about scaling rollouts for any kind of tool they use so that it becomes sort of part of this culture of what they do and how they do, as opposed to just, oh, here's this one-off tool, this GPT thing that I don't even know what it is. Like, how do we build it in a way that is scalable across?
I think it's a culture. I really do. As an educator, um, no matter how great the tool is, when my admin came in and said, "Hey, you're all using this now, jump on board," we're a lot more reluctant because we feel that that's one more thing on our plate.
Hmm.
And Curipod, we want to do something a little different. Number one, we're massive about supporting our teachers. We listen to our teachers. We are available, going back to the human component of it. But I think it's really having conversations with your peer group, your learning group. As an adult, I'm a lifetime learner. And I have friends who are like, hey, have you seen this? No, show it to me. And that's really got what we want at Curipod is we want educators to go in and like I said, I'm going to challenge you, even if you're not an AI person, go build one lesson. And if you're wowed by it, go share a friend. Like, hey, because I really think it's having that support group where you feel safe and learning together that makes the big difference.
Hmm.
I can go and kind of click around on a couple of the platforms and figure it out. But if you're not a tech savvy person and you're not familiar with some of the new terminology, it's hard to know where to start. Like, where do I start? What does that look like? So I encourage everyone, if you do not have a learning community, and you don't have to be in an education setting for this, if you are in a business setting, like go find your community of people and jump in and explore some stuff together. Have conversations about what you're doing. Um, Going back to looking up from the screen, we're asking students to talk out their thinking, and we're asking them to go one step further in their thinking process. So as adults, I encourage the same thing. Just play with it and see like what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And if you're not sure, look for the help button, which by the way, our help button down here in the bottom screen, can you see the little orange fella
Oh
here?
yeah, the little orange. Yeah.
That is a human. So that is important to our Curipod team. We are, every employee takes shifts and we're here. This is how we stay close to our teachers. We understand what's going on through the classroom, what is struggling, you know, what can we help you with? Where is a problem that you need a solution? We're here to help with that. So, and we're always willing to jump on a call and have conversations with you of what your needs are and how we can help fit those needs.
So I love that. That cracks me up. Mostly now what you hear is, oh, if you click on this little button, you're going to interact with our trained chatbot that allows you to get whatever you need to get. And I love that you just said, when you click on this button, you get a real live human. So that just kind of cracks me up because, one of the things that I think a lot about in digital learning and sort of in the space of all learning that we're in right now is, where's that humanness, right? Where's the human balance? How do we manage to make sure we are keeping that human balance and we're not losing it, especially in environments that are truly like holistically digital learning environments. Hybrid environments, yes, you have a human involved at some point in the process, but in our truly digital learning environments, how do we go about? I know I said that was my last question. I have one more question. Um, it's your fault. You prompted it.
It's okay.
How do we really go about keeping the humanness in our digital learning spaces?
Um, every technology has a place. And when we go back to what is truly learning, is it being thrown a lot of information at and hoping that a little bit sticks to the student? To me, that's not learning. Learning is having those conversations. Um, I could show you a quick poster of me and a little bit of information about me, and you may or may not remember me. But let me have a 3-minute conversation with you, and you'll probably go, "Oh yeah, I know Heather Brantley with Curipod," and
Hmm.
tell a little story to go along with it. Um, it's the human interaction that is so important, and I think that in this busy world, when you were talking about, there's so many new platforms and AI components being thrown at us that we feel that that's top priority, and it's really not. What's really priority is how do students learn best? It is conversations, it is learning from each other, and it's given moments to share. Because if a student is given the opportunity to talk out the learning process, they're more likely to retain that and be able to
Right.
retrieve it later. So, um, I think it's important to understand, like, oh yeah, they like it's kind of like the basics of a car. I could buy a car with every bell and whistle on it, but if my motor doesn't work, I wasted some money.
Hmm.
So what's driving our classroom? Is it conversations driving our classroom, or is it all the bells and whistles that came along? So I think it's important for us to stop and reflect on what is most important and how are we seeing that we're giving students those learning opportunities? Because yes, it may keep them quiet to click through learning, but how much of it really stuck? Like, and if it's happening for hours throughout a day, um, it would be like everybody coming to the PD today and all I asked you to do was ask these questionnaires and it gave you a response the entire time. That's not what you would want to spend an hour doing. However, having the conversations, learning from each other, I think is crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. And I think that's a great way to kind of segue into what's next, which is, first of all, I want to just say thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for joining us today. I really did enjoy the conversation that we had. And it's so true. We can't forget our humanness. We have to remember to look up. We have to remember to talk. Um, it's what sparks our curiosity, those conversations, those pieces of the puzzle. So I appreciate you sparking that last little question that I had, because that is the perfect way to kind of keep us going, to keep us transitioning. You talked about learning communities and finding your place, finding your people to learn from. Not to plug Texas DLA, but I will because it's a Texas DLA webinar. Um, it's a great place for us all to gather and to learn. I joined in the process of learning with TxDLA in, I hate to admit this, but in 2008. And I have learned so much from this community of people, whether it's through digital things like this, or it's in-person conferences or our leadership event. I just feel like I am always learning from the people that I connect with through this organization, as well as, many of the other organizations and LinkedIn, and there's all sorts of different places to find your people to learn from. So I appreciate you bringing that up and mentioning it. I also have to call out a big thank you to all of our sponsors who make our conference happen, who bring these types of events to us as we move along the way. So I appreciate that. Quick reminder to everybody, save the date for the fall leadership, October 15th through the 17th. I was about to say 7th. That's not it. 17th, in South Padre. And then we have our big conference, right, in March 23 through 26 in Galveston. We would love to see everybody attend in person. It's a great place to start building your real life human connection. Because to Heather's point, yeah, maybe you see a picture of her, you hear a little snippet about her, but until you're in that moment talking and learning and sharing, it's just different, right? You build your learning communities in different ways. So definitely encourage you to save the date, join us in person, join us virtually, join us both times. We'd love to have you part of the group. It's These webinars that we do are free to anybody, and we promote them all over socials and all sorts of different locations. So not everybody on the call today is a member. I encourage you to take a minute, check out TxDLA, learn more about us. Though we may be based in Texas, we have constituents literally all over the world. And it's $50 to join. All sorts of great resources for you in addition to the free bite-sized learning. Um, Learn more about TxDLA as you go along the way. Follow us on socials. We post not only information about, our webinars and our conferences, but there are articles and information that is shared out from thought leaders around the industry. So thank you, Heather, for being here and having this great conversation with me. I enjoyed it today. We didn't have any chat questions that popped up. Oh, good. You did put I was just about to say, put your contact information in there. If you would like to learn more about Curipod, or you want to chat with Heather about some of her experiences or other information, definitely reach out to her. Thank you guys for joining us today, and we hope to see you next month in September. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.